Hey everyone. Tonight, we're traveling back to a city frozen in time by catastrophe. Long before it became a ruin for modern tourists, Pompeii was alive with color, noise, and the gentle pulse of everyday Roman life. Bakers lit their ovens at dawn, street vendors hawked figs and olives in crowded forums, and housewives whispered prayers to household gods as they swept tiled floors. So, before you get cozy under that warm blanket, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel, but only if what I do here genuinely helps you wind down at night. And hey, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it right now? There's something oddly soothing about knowing there are others awake with us, wandering through history together. Now, dim the lights. Light a candle if you've got one, or let the soft flicker of your screen glow like a Roman oil lamp. Close your eyes slowly, and let the noise of today fall away. You're stepping into a world of warm stucco walls and tiled courtyards, where bronze wind chimes ring gently in the breeze, where the air is rich with bread, smoke, and sun-warmed citrus, and where, just beyond the horizon, Vesuvius waits in silence. You stir before the sun crests the horizon. It's quiet, still. For a moment, all you hear is the faint rustle of linen as you shift beneath your woolen cover. The stone walls around you are cool, their silence echoing with centuries of stories. You are not in the modern world. You are in Pompeii, sometime around the year 78 CE, inside a Roman domus nestled along a sun-baked street. The kind of house only a family of means might afford, spacious, adorned, and quietly humming with early morning motion. Outside your room, footsteps echo across mosaic floors. A household slave passes, carrying a bronze basin of water. You don't need to see it. You've heard the pattern enough to know. He's walking toward the atrium now, toward the center of the house where the roof is open to the sky. It's called the compluvium, and beneath it sits the impluvium, a shallow basin built to catch rainwater. Even on dry days, the marble edges of that pool reflect the first silver light of morning. The atrium breathes at dawn. It's the lungs of the house. Cool air drifts in from the compluvium, along with the scent of laurel and dust. You hear the faint splash of water being poured into jugs. Somewhere near the tablinum, someone coughs. Perhaps your father preparing to greet his clients, or a servant clearing the air with a burning sprig of rosemary. You rise slowly, wrapping a loose tunic over your shoulders. The floor is cool on bare feet. As you step into the hall, you see the house in its morning stillness, familiar yet freshly alive. The atrium stretches before you, lit by the soft amber glow of the oil lamps that were never fully snuffed during the night. Their flames sway as a slave glides past you, silent as shadow, adjusting a curtain to welcome in more light. The walls around you are painted with deep reds and earthy ochres, frescoes of gods and myth, of winged cupids and coiled vines. You've seen them your whole life, yet they feel eternal, like the past whispering through pigment. To your left, the cubicula, bedrooms, remain mostly shut. Some hold your siblings or cousins, others perhaps guests or elders of the household. You hear someone snoring softly behind a painted wooden door. In the corner, a young boy rubs his eyes. He's one of the household slaves, tasked with lighting the kitchen hearth. He holds a small clay lamp, still flickering with flame, and disappears into the colonna, the small kitchen tucked behind the peristyle. You know what's coming next? The scent of warmed olive oil, coarse bread toasted on a griddle, and maybe a smear of honey if it's a good day. It's not a feast, but it's enough. You pass through the atrium now, pausing at the impluvium. A few delicate petals float on the surface of the water, blown in by last night's breeze. You reach for a bronze jug on a nearby stand, tip it slightly, and rinse your hands and face with the cool morning water. It's not a ritual, not exactly. It's habit. Clean hands, clear mind. As you move toward the peristyle, the inner courtyard, you notice how the world is just beginning to warm. The garden beyond is lined with trimmed boxwood and clay planters. A statue of Bacchus peers out between the leaves, crowned in stone grapevines. In the center of the garden, a small fountain trickles. The sound of water always calms you, steady and soft, like breath. Birds stir in the tiled eaves overhead, and a rooster crows somewhere beyond the garden wall. You know beyond that wall lies the street, the familiar clatter of carts, the shouts of vendors, the distant hammer of a blacksmith. But inside, here, the domus shields you from that noise. For now, you are still. Your mother's voice drifts from the triclinium, the formal dining room. She's instructing another servant about a delivery. Amphorae of wine, perhaps, or new bolts of dyed linen from the market. Her words are measured, practiced, and calm. You can hear the authority in her tone, soft yet precise. Back in the atrium, your father is seated in the tablinum, adjusting his toga. He nods to you, not quite smiling, but his eyes are warm. Soon he'll meet with his clients, lower-class men who rely on his favor for legal protection and business. They'll arrive with the sun, their tunics dusty, their voices hushed in deference. You've watched this ritual many times. It's the morning dance of obligation and power, status and exchange. You notice something else now. The smell of garum, faint but rising. Fermented fish sauce, strong and sharp. Not everyone loves it, but to you, it smells like home. Breakfast is nearly ready. A young girl in the corner scatters grain for the household chickens. They peck lazily at the floor, feathers rustling like dried leaves. She hums as she works, a tune older than the city itself. And so the morning unfolds, not in rush or noise, but in rhythm. This is your world, and this house, this domus, with its painted walls and marble basin and flickering lamps, breathes around you like a gentle tide. The sun is beginning to rise higher now, casting gold across the stone columns. Another day has begun. You haven't yet stepped into the busy forum or tasted the dust of the street, but already the house has whispered its secrets to you. A mosaic tile beneath your foot, the warm metal of the door handle, the soft hush of footsteps where history walks with you. And as the first rays of sunlight slip through the open compluvium, you pause, breathe deeply, and know you are home. The morning light spills quietly across the stone floor. It creeps in through the open shutters, soft and golden, not yet hot, not yet buzzing with flies or the scent of midday cooking. It touches the folds of your linen tunic, brushes your bare arms, and gently insists that sleep has ended. You stir, blinking up at the high ceiling beams of your sleeping room, listening for the sound of footsteps in the atrium. It's still early. The city hasn't fully woken, but the house is already breathing. You sit up slowly, your bones adjusting to the cool air. Somewhere beyond the walls, someone is feeding a fire. You hear the faint crack of kindling, the shift of metal on stone. And somewhere closer, in your own kitchen, you smell it. Bread. Flat, thick rounds of barley bread pulled warm from the oven. A tang of ash, a ghost of yesterday's flour still clinging to the air. It's a scent so familiar you barely notice it anymore. Except on mornings like this, when the whole world is still quiet. You slip your feet into your sandals and make your way through the hallway, past the impluvium, the shallow pool in the center of the house. Sunlight spills through the roof opening above it, dancing faintly on the water's surface. A breeze stirs the hanging cloth at the entrance to the tablinum, the family's receiving room. But no guests will come today. Not yet. For now, there's only breakfast. In the kitchen, the hearth has already been lit. A small brazier glows orange, heating a ceramic pot of lentil stew for later. A slave stirs it gently with a wooden ladle, but she nods toward the low table by the wall where your morning meal has been set. It's simple. It always is. You sit down and look at what's been placed before you. A wedge of bread, still warm, its crust dark and slightly cracked from the clay oven. Next to it, a small shallow bowl filled with golden olive oil, smooth and fragrant. The oil gleams in the light like liquid sunlight. You tear off a piece of bread and dip it in, the crust soaking up the oil like a sponge. The flavor is sharp and earthy, with the soft bite of herbs, thyme or maybe coriander. Someone must have crushed into it before dawn. There's also honey. Not much. Just a spoonful in a terracotta dish, thick and slow-moving, gathered from hives on the hillside beyond the city gates. It tastes of wildflowers and warm stone, of sun and bees and patient hands. You press the bread into it, watch it cling like syrup, and take a bite. Sweetness spreads across your tongue, and for a moment, just a breath. There's nothing else. Just you and the taste of a Pompeian morning. A cup of watered wine rests nearby, cool and sharp. Not strong, just enough to wash the mouth clean and prepare the belly for the day. No one drinks it pure in the morning. That would be frowned upon, too indulgent, too Dionysian before the suns even climb the sky. But watered down like this, it's acceptable, expected. You sip slowly, letting the clay cup rest heavy in your hand, its rim smooth and familiar. From the open window, above the hearth, you can hear the city waking. The roll of wooden cartwheels over uneven stones, the cluck of chickens in a neighbor's courtyard, the call of a seller already setting up outside the forum gate. In the distance, someone is shouting for a child to hurry. Somewhere, a dog barks once and then falls silent again. You chew another bite, letting the bread soften in your mouth. You think, vaguely, about what needs doing today. Whether you'll need to stop by the market for more olives, or if the neighbor still plans to lend you that bronze pot. But the thoughts drift easily, like clouds over Vesuvius. There's no rush. You glance up. A row of ceramic storage jars, amphorae, stand lined against the kitchen wall, each marked with a charcoal scribble or tied with a bit of colored string. One holds more oil. Another is filled with salted fish paste, garum. Its sharp smell sealed away under a waxed cloth lid. There's dried fruit, lentils, vinegar, maybe even a handful of dates if the last caravan from the east arrived on time. The pantry is not rich, but it is well stocked. Enough for a few more mornings like this. The cook brings you a small fig, cut neatly in half. Its flesh glistens like rubies. You take it slowly, pressing the sweetness against the roof of your mouth with your tongue. "It's the last of the ones picked from the garden tree," she says. "The others have begun to spoil in the heat." You nod, grateful. You can almost taste the end of summer in it, the quiet warning that cooler winds are coming soon. A breeze moves again through the kitchen, lifting the edge of the linen curtain by the doorway. Dust motes turn in the air like drifting pollen. The light is growing stronger now, slanting lower through the house. Somewhere down the street, a boy runs past, sandals slapping loudly on the stones. You imagine the baker pulling open his shutters, the fishmonger haggling with an early customer, the forum columns glowing white under the rising sun. You rise, brushing crumbs from your lap. The bread is gone. The oil dish is nearly empty. The honey sits untouched now, too sweet to finish, too rare to waste. The day waits, but you'll remember this moment, this quiet, warm beginning, when the city grows loud and hot and restless. You'll remember the olive oil on your tongue, the fig in your palm, the smell of bread and ash and stone. Because in Pompeii, even the mornings, simple as they seem, are a feast of scent and shadow. And for now, you've tasted the first of it. The door to your domus swings open with a dry groan, and you step into the street. Already there's life in motion. A baker 2 doors down is sweeping flour from his stoop, the soft whoosh of his broom mingling with the low bray of a donkey being tugged awake. A young girl with a clay jug skips past, careful to avoid the pools of water that collect in the dips between the stones. Above, laundry flutters like flags strung between homes, tunics and linens dancing in the morning breeze, catching the scent of olive oil and crushed herbs from nearby kitchens. Your sandals click against the basalt stones, uneven, worn, and slick from centuries of traffic. The roads here aren't just paths. They are the city's memory carved in stone. They've borne the weight of chariots, cattle, and gossiping citizens for generations. Deep grooves have been worn into the rock by cartwheels, forming channels that guide the wheels like rails. You step between them with practiced ease, letting your eyes wander over the peculiar geometry of Pompeii's streets. Stepping stones, arranged like islands, let you cross without wetting your feet. They're placed just far enough apart to let wagon wheels pass on either side. It's brilliant, really. Roman logic hidden in plain sight. Each street is a negotiation between order and chaos, between the sacred quiet of the home and the messy exuberance of the public world. You pause at the first fountain, where water flows endlessly from a carved lion's mouth into a stone basin. The water is cold and clean, fed by the aqueducts that thread their way through the hills beyond. A young man stops to fill his jug beside you. He nods, and you return the gesture. No words exchanged, just the silent rhythm of the morning. The fountain gurgles like a living thing, and a small child reaches up to touch the stream, laughing as the water splashes her chin. Above you, the walls whisper. Graffiti, scrawled in charcoal and scratched with nails, tells the stories Pompeii never meant to keep secret. Some are political. Vote for Lucius Papitius for Adil. Others are romantic. I was here, and I loved Livia. Some are obscene, others poetic. All are real, urgent messages left behind by people no different than you, trying to be seen in a world that often forgets. You wander down the Vicolo del Balcone Pensil, a narrow lane between tall brick facades. Each home has its secrets hidden behind painted doors, red and ochre plaster, flaking in the sun, frescoes of birds and gods tucked behind iron gates. You imagine who lives behind each threshold: a merchant counting coins, a widow kneeling in prayer, a boy sneaking figs from the kitchen. The scent of garum, fermented fish sauce, drifts through the air, sharp and familiar. It clings to the stone walls like old smoke. A food stall is opening nearby, and the owner is arranging small bowls of olives and bread on a worn wooden counter. You nod again, and he offers a faint smile, already busy slicing cheese with a bronze knife. A pair of oxen lumbers past, pulling a cart filled with amphorae. The driver clicks his tongue softly, and the animals obey without pause. Their hooves echo through the street, a heavy rhythm beneath the light chatter of passers-by. You step aside to let them pass, and a bit of dust rises, catching in your lashes. A dog barks, not a warning, just a tired greeting. He's familiar, this dog. You've seen him in the forum, near the market, and sometimes curled on the sun-warmed steps of the theater. His fur is patchy, and he walks with a slight limp, but there's a contentment in his trot. He knows this city better than most. You follow him for a moment, and he leads you past another intersection, where the view opens up. Columns rise in the distance, marking the temple square. But for now, you linger on this street. A slave sweeps ash from a brazier out into the gutter, and it drifts down like gray snow. A man repairs a sandal on a stool by his shop, his fingers quick and sure. Two women speak in hushed tones near a doorway, heads close, hands full of folded cloth. The air hums with life, but gently, like the first notes of a song you know by heart. Here in Pompeii, even the silence is busy. You reach another fountain, this one worn smooth by 1,000 palms. A fig tree leans over the edge of a courtyard wall, casting dappled shade across the street. You stand there a moment, resting one hand on the warm stone, and let your eyes close. The cobblestones are beneath you, the sound of a cart, a child laughing, a soft splash from a jug, all around. The city breathes. You exhale. This is a place not frozen in time, but quietly alive, etched into walls, pressed into the dust beneath your feet, whispered in broken Latin on the edge of the morning. And now your day in Pompeii has just begun. You awaken not to the sound of birdsong, but to the subtle clatter of sandals on stone. The sun, just beginning to rise beyond the eastern hills, has already sent its golden fingers stretching over the red-tiled rooftops of Pompeii. A warm breeze carries with it the scent of bread baking and olive oil sizzling in shallow pans. It's a promising day, a good day to visit the baths. Your tunic still smells faintly of the wine you spilled last night, and your hair has curled from the heat of the previous afternoon. The soles of your feet, bare for most of yesterday, are still dusty from the forum. You long for water, for a pause, for a few hours spent somewhere slow and steamy, somewhere you don't have to think. And so, you begin your walk to the Thermae. The baths are just a few streets from the forum, nestled behind a colonnade, their entrance modest, but the marble lions flanking the doors remind you this is no humble hut. These walls hold rituals as old as Rome itself. You nod to the doorman, a freedman with one cloudy eye and the permanent scent of sulfur clinging to his skin. He grunts and lets you pass. You've paid your entrance fee many times before. Inside, your footsteps echo softly on the smooth stone as you make your way to the apoditarium, the changing room. It's cool in here, shaded. You notice a few others already arrived, men chatting while removing their tunics, folding them loosely and slipping them into open cubby holes in the wall. Some carry their own oil flasks and strigils, those curved metal tools used to scrape away sweat and grime once the heat has done its work. You undress slowly. There's no shame in it. Everyone is bare here. You slide the rough linen from your shoulders, fold it, and tuck it into an empty alcove. For a moment, you simply stand there, unburdened by cloth, warmed by the soft murmurs of voices bouncing off mosaic walls. You carry your strigil loosely in one hand as you move into the tepidarium, the warm room. This is the bath's gentle welcome. The air is thick with warmth, but not stifling, the floor radiating a slow heat from the hypocaust system below, a marvel of Roman engineering. Slaves tend the fire constantly, feeding logs through chambers beneath your feet, so the stone glows with a subtle, invisible heat. You sit on a bench tiled in tiny blue squares. Beside you, a man hums to himself while rubbing olive oil into his shoulders. You do the same, working the oil into your skin, your pores opening under the heat. The scent, both pungent and earthy. The oil is no luxury. It's your soap, your moisturizer, your protector against grime. Your muscles begin to unwind. You feel the tension of walking, working, worrying. All of it start to slide away. Time, too, slows here. No one rushes in the baths. When you feel your skin slick and your limbs warm, you step through the arched doorway into the caldarium, the hot room. Steam greets you instantly, heavy and damp, rising in clouds from a deep, sunken basin in the center of the floor. You can't see the far wall clearly through the mist. The heat wraps itself around you like a wool cloak in summer. Beads of sweat form almost instantly at your temples. You lower yourself carefully into the water, not too fast, letting the hot embrace soak your skin. It's quiet here. Just the soft drip of condensation falling from the curved ceiling, the shuffle of someone adjusting their weight along the edge of the bath. You close your eyes and lean back. After a time, 10 minutes, 20, you don't know. You rise, glistening, and walk to a marble bench near the wall. There, you begin to use the strigil, dragging it slowly across your skin, scraping away the mixture of oil, sweat, and dust that the heat has coaxed out. A slave stands nearby with a bucket of warm water, and when you're done, he pours it over your shoulders. You exhale. The feeling is something between relief and renewal. And though few words are spoken, you're not alone here. There's a senator you recognize from the forum, sitting with his back pressed against the far wall. A baker you've seen before is nodding off in the corner. There are merchants, scribes, freedmen, all equal now, wrapped in heat, stripped of titles and clothes. You exchange glances, maybe a nod. That's enough. Eventually, when your fingers begin to prune and your chest feels flushed from the heat, you make your way to the frigidarium, the cold plunge. It's the final step, the closing of pores, the tightening of skin. You brace yourself and then lower your body into the icy basin. It steals the breath from your lungs, but it wakes you, clears your mind, recenters you. When you emerge, You feel lighter, refreshed. You return to the appetiterium, dry your skin with a wool cloth, and redress. Your tunic feels softer now, looser somehow. You walk out into the sun with damp hair and a clear mind. The scent of olive oil still lingers faintly on your skin, but now it's tempered by the memory of steam and stone. The streets are busier now. Merchants are shouting. Children are chasing one another with figs in their hands. But for a little while longer, you carry the quiet of the baths with you, tucked between your shoulders like a secret. Today, you're going to the market, the Macellum, where all of Pompeii seems to converge by mid-morning. You step out from the shaded atrium of your rented domus, sandals brushing dust from the street's flat stones. Above you, canvas awnings stretch between buildings, filtering the light in strips. Already the city hums. You pass a baker fanning the ashes from his stone oven's mouth. Nod politely to a boy carrying a wicker basket filled with figs. The smell of yeast and ash follows you as you turn toward the forum. And then the market opens before you. The Macellum is an orderly chaos, a rectangular court surrounded by columns. Beneath those columns, stalls bloom like mushrooms, some permanent, others cobbled together each morning from shutters, crates, and woven mats. The marble underfoot is already warm in patches, and around you, Pompeians haggle, laugh, call out, and inspect fruit with the scrutiny of emperors. You begin, as most do, near the fishmongers. It's early, and the smell has not yet soured. Men in short tunics stand behind stone counters lined with piles of scaled treasures: silver sardines, plump mullet, eel tied with string. The sea is less than a mile away, and their boats returned only hours ago. You run your fingers over a cool, wet amphora filled with oysters. A boy offers a sample, salt water still clinging to the shell. You smile. You decline. Next comes the bread. There's a familiar warmth to this corner of the Macellum. Here the ovens are still hot, their blackened mouths like yawning dogs. Round loaves, marked with the stamp of the baker, are stacked neatly in woven baskets. Some are coarse and brown, others pale and sweet-smelling, made from finer imported flour. A woman to your left exchanges a coin, stamped with the emperor's profile, for a crusted roll stuffed with dates. She tears off a corner and offers you a knowing glance. You nod. Bread is never just bread here. It is a morning ritual. From the bread stalls, you drift toward color. This is the fruit and vegetable section. Figs, plums, and pomegranates split open like secrets on the wooden carts. You spot cabbages stacked like tiny boulders, white onions, lentils drying in the sun. A vendor cradles a melon in both hands and raises it to you wordlessly. You press your thumb into the side. It yields slightly. Ripe. You fish a few small bronze coins from your pouch. The man accepts them without counting. He recognizes you now. You've come 3 mornings in a row. You're not from here, but you're no longer a stranger. The market's noise folds around you like soft fabric. The low buzz of bartering, the occasional clang of a dropped amphora, the burst of laughter from a wine cellar halfway down the colonnade. You make your way toward him. Wine here is never just wine. He has small ceramic cups laid out for tasting, one red, mulled with spices and honey, another thin and sharp. You sip the first, letting the warmth trickle down your throat, He launches into a story about where it came from. Amalfi, he swears. Though you suspect every merchant claims the same. Still, you nod. He pours more. You buy half a jug to be delivered before sundown. And then, spices. This is your favorite. Tiny pyramids of color on wide bronze trays. Saffron, cumin, coriander, and a dried red powder that makes you sneeze when you lean too close. The spice merchant wears a white tunic, stained faintly orange from his work. He's quiet, unlike the others. You lift a pinch of crushed bay leaf to your nose and are carried instantly to your grandmother's hearth, a memory you haven't summoned in years. You stay a while. Eventually, your satchel is heavy. Bread, fruit, a flask of wine, a wedge of cheese. You weave slowly toward the exit, past an older woman selling dried garum in clay jars. The fish sauce every Roman needs, but no one wants to smell. Up close. You nod politely and move on. The market tapers off into quiet. Here at the edge of the Macellum is a basin for washing. Public, clean enough. You dip your fingers in and rinse the dust from your palms. The city stretches ahead, sun growing brighter by the minute, dogs curling in the shade of steps, and someone tuning a lyre somewhere unseen. Your errands are done. You take one last look at the Macellum as it hums behind you. This, you realize, is the heartbeat of Pompeii, not the temples or the bathhouses, not even the grand villas with their mosaic floors. It's here, in the bread, in the fish, in the fig cellars and wine cups and thumb-worn coins passed between hands. You breathe in deeply. Smoke, salt, sweetness, and stone. And then you walk back into the city, arms full, stomach beginning to rumble, and mind at peace. The market has given you what you came for, and tomorrow you will return. The sun's a little higher now. It settles gently on your shoulders as you step out of the Macellum, your tunic a touch looser from that midday bread stuffed with olives and cheese. The morning crowds are shifting. Vendors call out less now. The peak market rush has passed, and the stone streets begin to warm under your sandals. You can hear the clack of a wooden cart being pulled toward the forum, and the gentle splashing of a street fountain just ahead. But you're not done. Not yet. You didn't come to Pompeii just to eat. You follow a short side street that curves away from the chaos of fishmongers and sausage sellers. Here, things are quieter. There's a cluster of narrow shops tucked neatly between the grander houses, some with painted signs over their doors, some with shelves that spill out into the street itself. These aren't food stalls. These are for everything else. The luxuries, the finery, the smells of wealth, or at least the illusion of it. The first shop you pass is heavy with the scent of oil and iron. A bronze smith is hunched over a small forge at the back of his stall. His arms are bare, his tunic singed and slick with sweat, as he hammers the lip of what looks like a new oil lamp. There are shelves behind him filled with tools, tweezers, combs, and hinges. You spot a delicate little hand mirror, polished almost to silver. Niskimwai. A small bust of Venus, hollow inside and meant to hold perfume. Bronze isn't cheap, but it lasts. If you were someone important, you might buy a whole set of these. Across the way, a more colorful shop catches your eye. Literally. The walls are painted with soft pinks and ochre reds. Vines curl in plaster along the sides, and painted birds perch among fig leaves. It's a decorative studio, you realize. The woman inside isn't selling food or tools. She's selling walls. She smiles faintly as you step closer. On the table before her is a stack of wax tablets with drawings etched into them, plans for new frescoes. You can see the outlines of Apollo with his lyre, a dancing nymph, even a scene of Hercules wrestling a lion. These aren't for your home, unless you own a villa, but they're still beautiful to look at. She shows you some of her pigments: powdered malachite for green, crushed cinnabar for red, and charcoal for the deep outlines. You breathe in the faint scent of lime plaster, still damp from work done that morning. Next door is the potter. He's older, white beard, bent shoulders, and he works in the shade of a low canvas tarp. Shelves surround him like a clay forest. Amphorae, oil flasks, little cups with red glazed rims, some painted with hunting scenes, others left plain. He picks up a jug, holds it up to the light for you. The curve is clean, the spout delicate, perfect for watered wine or scented oil. You turn it over in your hands, still warm from the kiln. It hums slightly in your palm, like it remembers fire. There's a younger man sweeping in the back. The potter mutters something about him being his nephew, useless with the wheel, but good at keeping ash off the merchandise. You nod politely. You're mostly watching the jars. Then you smell it. Sweet, thick, and unmistakable. The scent of myrrh and roses. It pulls you like a thread through the air to the next shop. The perfumery. The doorway is draped with woven linen strips to keep the heat out. Inside, it's dim and cool. Small terracotta bottles line wooden shelves along the wall, each sealed with wax and tied with red thread. The shopkeeper is a woman in her 30s, wrapped in a deep blue stola. Her hair smells faintly of lavender. She greets you with a nod, gestures toward a stone tray in front of her. On it, several testers sit open, glass stirrers resting inside. You lean down and inhale. First, violets and almond oil. Then, pine resin and musk. Finally, rose and myrrh again. Thicker this time, richer, like something poured in a temple. She tells you this last blend is meant for evening wear. Lovers, parties, or funerals. You're not sure which occasion you're shopping for, but you nod appreciatively. She shows you how it's made, with a base of olive oil and beeswax, thickened and stirred with crushed petals and resin. No alcohol, no water. Roman perfume clings to the skin like honey, she says, and it lasts just as long. You think about the bottle you saw earlier at the bronzesmith's shop. The little Venus bust meant to hold scent. It would pair nicely with this perfume. You wonder if anyone's ever mixed love and art so literally. Outside again, the sun's still high. You've been walking these shops for nearly an hour now, but it doesn't feel like it. The stones beneath your feet are warm, the shadows shifting across mosaic floors in open doorways. You pass a wool seller winding dyed yarn into bundles, and a glassmaker showing off his blue-green bowls with tiny flecks of gold caught inside like stars. You pause to admire them. This street, this side of Pompeii, is quieter than the Forum, softer than the shouting fish sellers and butcher stalls, but it's no less alive. Here, wealth is measured in color, scent, and form. A new pot, a beautiful cup, a jar of oil that turns every movement of the neck into a whispered song. You didn't buy anything today. Not really. But your hands remember the weight of that clay jug. Your nose still carries the echo of rose and resin. And your eyes? they can't quite forget the shimmer of crushed malachite green, or the deep, impossible red of a lion caught mid-roar on a painted wall. The day isn't over yet, but you'll remember this walk. Through perfume, pots, and paint. Pompeii is full of treasures. Most don't glitter, but they linger. Your shadow follows you lazily as you cross the threshold into the open plaza of Pompeii's heart, the Forum. It's quiet here, but not silent. Everything seems to move in a hush. Voices carry softly through the air, echoing between columns and statues, mingling with the rustling of linen togas and the clinking of bronze weights from merchants at nearby stalls. You pause, not because anyone stops you, but because the place itself commands it. Even in this moment, centuries before the mountain would rise in rage, time seems to slow. In the Forum, the square is larger than you expected. Paved with worn travertine blocks and hemmed by porticos, the Forum opens like a breathing space after the tight press of streets. To your left, the Temple of Jupiter rises, tall and solemn, its stairway dark with footsteps worn smooth by citizens who came to plead or pray, or perhaps only to pretend at piety before going back to their business. Columns tower like tree trunks, once holding up the gods themselves, and now only holding up sky. You feel the breeze pull through the plaza, stirring the hem of your tunic and lifting fine dust from between the paving stones. A child darts past you, laughing as he chases a hoop, his bare feet pattering like drum beats on stone. His mother calls after him, tired but gentle. You smile. Life moves on, even here, where law, trade, and ceremony all collide beneath the hot Italian sun. You wander forward, past a marble bench where two men sit deep in conversation. One leans close, his toga immaculate, his sandals expensive. The other nods slowly, eyes flicking from the man's face to the passing crowd. A deal is being made, you think, but not with coin. Not here. This is politics. Influence. Perhaps promises exchanged in low Latin beneath the eyes of Jupiter himself. You glance upward again, just in time to see a white dove settle on the pediment of the temple. For a moment, it is still, a perfect dot of peace, before it vanishes with a flutter toward the Forum baths nearby. On the far side of the square, you spot the basilica, a long, open structure with rows of columns inside and a raised platform at one end. This is where justice is served, they say. You wander toward it slowly, letting your steps echo beneath the shade of its great roof. Inside, you can hear a magistrate's voice, calm and clipped, reading aloud from a tablet. A case is being heard, a dispute over land, perhaps. Two men stand silently before him, their advocates behind them. Even here, in this place of law, no one raises their voice. There is order in Pompeii, even if that order sometimes bends for the right family name or the right weight of silver. You leave them to their verdict and drift back into the heat. Past the basilica, along the colonnade, you see statues, or what's left of them, some headless, some worn smooth by wind and centuries. They stand not for worship, but for memory. Former patrons of the city, men who built temples or baths or aqueducts. Their names are carved in Latin below their feet. You trace one with your finger, feeling the grooves worn by others who came before. Each letter a whisper from another life. Someone coughs nearby, an older woman holding a basket of figs. She leans against a pillar, wiping her brow with a linen cloth. You catch her eye, and she nods, as if to say, "It's too hot for standing." You nod back and continue on, the sweetness of her fruit wafting behind her like perfume. At the corner of the forum stands a statue of Eumakia, a wealthy priestess and one of the most respected women in Pompeii. Her robes are carved in stone, perfectly draped, her face serene. You step into her building, the Eumakia building, once used by the fullers, the cloth merchants, and dyers. Inside, sunlight filters through high openings, casting long shadows. The floor is cool beneath your feet. For a moment, you're not a visitor. You're a citizen. You belong. Outside again, you let your gaze sweep across the forum one last time. A boy is sweeping near a column, dust circling around his broom like smoke. A pair of women in stolas exchange greetings in soft tones as they pass, their bracelets catching the sun. A vendor calls out from beneath the portico, offering honeyed almonds from a wooden tray. You take one, warm, sticky, perfect, and thank him quietly. Above it all, Mount Vesuvius looms in the distance, green and peaceful, harmless, or so it seems. No one speaks of it, not today. The mountain sleeps, and so does fear. You find a spot on a marble step and sit for a while, letting the world drift around you. Time slows, the wind settles, the forum breathes its ancient rhythm, and in this quiet heart of Pompeii, beneath the sun and among the stones, you begin to wonder how long anything truly lasts. You walk slowly, sandal soles brushing the ancient stone, the sun warming your shoulders as the morning stretches into late day. Pompeii breathes around you, not loudly, but with the hush of familiarity, the murmur of merchants, the clatter of a distant cartwheel, the perfume of crushed bay leaves and freshly baked bread mingling with the breeze. But today, your footsteps are not headed toward the bustling forum or crowded stalls. Today you're drawn to quieter places, stone courtyards, sacred thresholds, the cool echo of sanctuaries cut off from the city's noise. You are going to the temples. You've passed them many times, of course. These monuments raised to gods both old and foreign. But today, you'll step inside. First, you climb the shallow steps of the Temple of Jupiter. It sits at the head of the forum like a sentinel, watching over all beneath the looming gaze of Mount Vesuvius. You know this temple well. Every citizen does. Jupiter, the king of gods, watches over laws, thunder, victory in battle. The Romans say he hurls lightning bolts with his own hands. His statue sits within, once gilded and radiant, though now the shine has dulled from ash and time. Inside the temple, your steps grow quieter. The city's sounds fade behind thick stone walls. The air cools. Before you is an altar, worn smooth by years of offerings. Olive oil, grain, incense, all poured or scattered in silent petitions. You pause, as others have done for centuries, and place your own offering, a small pinch of salt you carried wrapped in linen, not because you're required to, but because you want to be seen by the divine. There are no priests here now, not at this hour. Only you, the scent of old smoke, and the fading light through high slats in the roof. You whisper a few words, not a formal prayer, just a quiet thought, something between you and the god. You leave Jupiter behind with a reverent nod and walk back through the forum. The stone columns shimmer in the heat, and your eyes catch flashes of red ochre, still clinging to the base of a wall, remnants of a once painted world. As you pass a vendor selling figs and dried rose petals, you turn toward your next destination. The Temple of Apollo waits. This one feels older. It is older. The Greeks brought Apollo to these shores, long before Latin was spoken in the streets. His temple stands slightly apart from the forum, as if remembering its own foreign origin. The columns are fewer now, some crumbled, others leaning, but the spirit remains. Apollo, god of music, prophecy, and the sun, lingers in the warmth that kisses your face as you step into his sacred court. A sundial lies cracked nearby, its shadow fixed in time. Statues of Apollo and his twin sister Diana stand silently beside the altar. His lyre is slung over his shoulder, his marble lips half parted as if about to speak. You imagine music once filled this courtyard. Lutes, flutes, a soft chorus of prayer. Maybe it still echoes somewhere, if one listens long enough. You sit for a moment near the altar. A small lizard scampers past your foot and vanishes into a crack between stones. In your palm, you hold a sprig of laurel you picked near the baths, a symbol sacred to Apollo. You lay it gently beside the base of the statue. You ask, not for glory or gold, but for insight, for a whisper of truth in a world that often speaks in riddles. If the god answers, it is only in the rustling of distant palm leaves. And then, finally, you walk southward, away from the heart of Roman gods and into something stranger, the Temple of Isis. This temple feels different the moment you enter its gates. The air is still, almost expectant. The Temple of Isis doesn't tower. It encloses, intimate, veiled in shade, protected by walls painted with blue lotuses and Egyptian scenes. The goddess here is foreign, yes, but adored. Her cult has grown strong in Pompeii, especially among women and the poor. Those who seek comfort, resurrection, and a motherly divine. You move through a small colonnaded courtyard, past a basin used for sacred water rituals. Everything here is symbolic, measured. A priestess dressed in white robes passes you quietly, her steps echoing like whispers. She carries a small dish of milk and honey, likely for a private offering inside. The inner sanctuary is darker, the light filtered through narrow gaps above. A statue of Isis rises from the gloom, her face serene, her hands outstretched in blessing or warning. You cannot tell which. At her feet, incense coils upward, sweet and spicy, wrapping around you like a memory. You kneel for a moment, not because you've converted, but because the air here demands reverence. You feel yourself seen, not judged, just witnessed. You leave a tiny ivory bead you carried in your pouch, something meaningless to most, but meaningful to you. Isis, they say, remembers all things. When you finally step outside, the sun has dipped lower in the sky. A gentle wind tousles your tunic and brings with it the scent of bread baking in the distance. Life in Pompeii moves forward. The market still hums. Children still chase stray dogs along the alleyways. But something in you feels quieter, steadier. You have visited the gods, not just one, but many. You have walked where thousands have walked, knelt where others have whispered their hopes and fears, left behind some small part of yourself in stone chambers where fire once danced. You return to the streets changed, not in any dramatic way, but gently, like a prayer forgotten on the lips, or a breeze that passes through a sacred doorway and never quite leaves. Tonight, you'll sleep under the stars, just as they did. Your dreams wrapped in incense, laurel, and the memory of still, sacred places. Pompeii may one day fall silent, but the gods, and those who once walked in their shadow, remain. Now, imagine the sun, warm but gentle, filtering through olive trees as you approach a grand villa on the outskirts of Pompeii. You've left behind the noisy streets, the chatter of the market, and the clatter of carts on cobblestones. Here, the air is lighter, scented faintly with herbs and flowering shrubs. This is a place of calm and quiet power, a world apart from the everyday bustle. You step through an ornate wooden gate, the hinges creaking softly. The gravel path crunches underfoot as you enter the villa's outer garden. Tall cypress trees stand like silent sentinels, their dark green needles swaying faintly in the breeze. To your right, a small fountain bubbles quietly, the water catching the sunlight and scattering shimmering reflections onto the pale stone walls. The garden is carefully arranged, a tapestry of scented herbs like rosemary and lavender, their aromas mixing with the faint sweetness of blooming jasmine. Bees hum lazily, moving from flower to flower. Somewhere nearby, the soft flutter of doves adds a gentle rhythm to the silence. This place is a retreat, a sanctuary from the heat and dust of the town. Ahead lies the entrance to the house, an open doorway framed by tall marble columns. You step inside, leaving behind the sunlit garden for the cool shade of the atrium, the heart of the villa. Your footsteps echo softly on the polished mosaic floor beneath you. Tiny colored stones form intricate patterns, twisting vines, geometric shapes, even tiny scenes from mythology. The artistry is breathtaking, every detail crafted by skilled hands long ago. Above you, the open roof of the atrium allows sunlight to spill in, highlighting the water basin, the impluvium in the center, designed to catch the rain. The gentle sound of dripping water adds to the peaceful atmosphere, and you breathe in the cool, slightly damp air, a contrast to the bright world outside. As your eyes adjust, you begin to see the frescoes on the walls. Painted in deep reds, blues, and golds, these images tell stories of gods and goddesses, of banquets, and of dancing figures caught mid-step. The colors are still vibrant, as if the painter's brushes have just left the walls. Each figure seems to watch you quietly, their expressions serene or mysterious, inviting you to linger. You move further inside, passing through a series of rooms, the triclinium, where guests would recline on couches during long dinners, the tablinum, where the master of the house conducted business or received visitors, and the cubicula, small bedrooms with simple but elegant decoration. In the triclinium, the walls are lined with couches, covered in soft cushions and blankets dyed in rich colors. The floor mosaics here depict fish swimming in sparkling waters, their scales almost shimmering beneath your gaze. Imagine the long feasts held here, guests reclining, drinking wine sweetened with honey, discussing politics or poetry late into the night. You step onto a stone terrace overlooking the countryside beyond the villa walls. Rolling hills stretch to the horizon, dotted with vineyards and olive groves. The sky is a vast expanse of soft blue, streaked with wisps of white clouds. A cool breeze carries the scent of ripening grapes and fresh earth. Somewhere in the distance, the faint outline of Mount Vesuvius rises, a peaceful giant slumbering beyond view. Below, servants move quietly among the garden paths, carrying fresh fruit and pitchers of water. You notice the subtle signs of wealth: delicate bronze lamps hanging from walls, fine pottery arranged on shelves, and glass vessels that catch the light like jewels. The air is calm here, touched by the slow passage of time and the careful hands that tend this estate. You pause beside a small shrine, a lararium, tucked into a corner near the kitchen. Here, miniature statues of household gods stand guard, surrounded by offerings of breadcrumbs and wine drops. The family's ancestors are honored here, their protection sought for health and prosperity. You imagine the soft murmurs of prayers, the flicker of candlelight in the evening, the deep sense of tradition and faith grounding life in this house. The kitchen itself is surprisingly modest. Clay pots bubble quietly on a small hearth, and the scent of herbs and simmering broth drifts through the air. You can almost hear the soft clatter of cooking utensils and the low voices of slaves preparing the evening meal, their footsteps muffled on the stone floor. Wandering back through the villa, you notice the quiet luxury of everyday objects. A finely carved wooden chair, an iron key hanging from a leather thong, a delicate glass perfume bottle half hidden on a shelf. Each item hints at stories you will never fully know. Of children playing hide and seek, of lovers exchanging secret notes, of whispered plans made by candlelight. Before you leave, you pause in the peristyle garden, a lush courtyard surrounded by tall columns. Here, flowering vines climb gracefully, and statues of gods and mythical creatures stand watch. A small pool reflects the sky, its surface perfectly still. The soft sound of water and the fragrance of orange blossoms settle around you like a gentle embrace. You breathe deeply and feel a quiet peace. For a moment, you are part of this world. A visitor who has glimpsed the rhythms of a life both distant and alive, where nature and art, power and grace coexist in gentle harmony. You step quietly into the narrow alley, the sun now dipping behind the terracotta roofs, casting long, uneven shadows across the worn cobblestones beneath your feet. The stones are slick in places, not just with the dust of a city that never truly rests, but with the slow drip of sweat, spilled water, and the faint, stubborn smell of earth mixed with salt and smoke. Here, the noise of Pompeii's main streets, the bartering voices, the clatter of carts, the laughter from the forum, fades, replaced by a quieter rhythm, the rhythm of labor that often goes unnoticed. In this shadowed world, the true heartbeat of Pompeii pulses, the slaves and laborers, the invisible hands that keep the city alive. You move carefully, aware of the low-hanging cloths and drying laundry strung between windows, a subtle sign that this part of the city breathes differently. The air is thick with the mingling scents of sweat, dust, cooking fires, and something else. A faint, underlying trace of fear and weariness, held in the backs bent beneath their loads, in the careful glances cast over worn shoulders. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, catching sight of figures hunched low, moving steadily. A young woman stoops beside a broken amphora, carefully gathering shards. Her hands are calloused, marked by small cuts and scars that tell of days spent toiling in hot sun and chilly nights. She wears a simple tunic, faded and threadbare, her hair tied back in a rough knot. She does not look up, for there is no pause in her work. Not now. Not ever. If she hopes to earn even the smallest favor from her master. Across the alley, a man labors with a cart piled high with firewood. He grunts under the weight, muscles taut beneath skin darkened by sun and dust. His eyes flicker towards you, wary, but not hostile, just cautious, as if questioning whether you belong in this shadowed place, or if you are yet another noble or merchant's child, lost in curiosity. You are neither. Here, you are one of them. Behind a faded doorway, the sound of whispered prayers and soft sobbing escapes. Perhaps a mother missing her children, or a young slave longing for freedom. The city's grandeur masks this smaller, harsher world, one of obedience, hardship, and the relentless pulse of survival. It's easy for the wealthy to ignore the creaks of these back alleys, where the clatter of hooves and the clang of the forum's marble temples feel miles away. You follow the sound of labor into a small courtyard. A group of slaves, some barely older than children, scrub the stone steps of a grand domus. Their movements are practiced, mechanical, a routine drilled into them by necessity and fear. Water sloshes from cracked buckets, mixing with the grime and turning into a thick, muddy slurry. The master's house gleams beyond the walls, whitewashed and proud. But here, in the courtyard, life is a daily fight against dust, filth, and exhaustion. One of the younger boys pauses, his eyes meeting yours briefly before darting away. You sense the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories behind that glance. Dreams crushed beneath sandals, hopes hidden beneath chains. You step closer to the servants' quarters. The low, cramped rooms smell of stale air, sweat, and something sharp, the tang of iron tools and hard work. Inside, women prepare meals, their hands moving quickly despite weariness. They pound grain into flour, chop vegetables, and tend small fires burning low in clay ovens. You notice the intricate precision with which they work, a quiet pride in their skill that defies the harshness of their lives. You remember that slaves here are not merely laborers. Many have skills and crafts. Some are educated, trusted as scribes or teachers. Others heal with herbs, clean with care, or weave with patience. But beneath the surface, the weight of their bondage is always present, pressing like the stones underfoot. Outside, the clanging of metal rings through the alleys, blacksmiths hammering at glowing iron, forging horseshoes, nails, or simple tools. The sparks fly like fireflies, brief bursts of brightness in the gathering dusk. You can almost taste the heat, feel the burn of embers on your skin. The life of a slave is a world of shadows and flashes, of small victories and constant fear. You pause by a fountain where a few slaves gather, dipping water into cracked bowls, sharing quiet moments of respite. The water tastes cool and sharp, a fleeting comfort in a day filled with sweat and dirt. There is no laughter here, only the faint hum of resigned conversation. Words spoken softly, often in languages that their masters do not understand. Greek, Oscan, and even distant tongues from beyond the empire mingle in this hidden world. As night deepens, lamps flicker to life in the windows above, casting soft pools of light that do little to chase the darkness from the alleys. You know the work is far from done. After the sun sets, some slaves will clean the kitchens. Others will watch over children or tend the fires that keep the house warm. Freedom is a word whispered like a forbidden prayer, a distant dream few dare to touch. You find yourself thinking about the families torn apart by sale or punishment, the fleeting kindnesses of a master, the harsh beatings when expectations are not met. The law offers little protection. Slaves are property, bound not just by chains, but by the weight of society itself. And yet, amidst the hardship, you see resilience in the way a mother hushes her child to sleep, in the shared meals passed quietly, in the stolen moments of music or story told beneath breath. You begin to understand that the city of Pompeii is a mosaic of lives, grand and small, powerful and powerless, free and enslaved. The gleaming forum, the temples, the bustling markets, they are only one side of the story. The other lies here, in these shadowed alleys, carried on the backs of those who build, clean, care, and endure. As you turn back toward the brighter streets, the sounds of the city rise again. A bard's lute, strumming faintly in the distance, the murmur of voices blending with the distant clatter of hooves. But in your mind, the echoes of this hidden world linger. You carry with you the heavy weight of unseen lives, the rhythm of quiet toil that made Pompeii live and breathe. Today is a school day. You gather your things, a wooden stylus, smooth and worn from use, and your small wax tablet, its surface carefully prepared by a servant the night before. This tablet will be your notebook, your canvas for letters and numbers, your place to practice the skills that will shape your future. Your mother sends you off with a soft nod and a last reminder. Listen well and show respect. In this city, where stories swirl like dust on the cobblestones, education is a rare gift, one that sets you apart, especially since you belong to a wealthy family. The walk to school takes you past familiar sights. The fountain where neighbors pause for water, the baker's shop with the warm scent of freshly baked bread, and the forum where statues of gods watch silently over the city. The building you enter is small, simple, but full of promise. Here, the teacher awaits. He is a man with a grave face and keen eyes, known as a grammaticus, the instructor who guides you beyond mere reading and writing. The room is sparsely furnished, a few wooden benches, shelves stacked with scrolls, and a low table where you will copy letters and verses. The air smells faintly of ink and beeswax. You take your seat among other boys, and sometimes girls, whose futures may be just as uncertain as your own. There is a quiet tension, mixed with curiosity, as the teacher calls the lesson to order. The day begins with letters, A, B, C. You carefully trace each one into your wax tablet, pressing the stylus gently, watching the dark lines form against the pale surface. The letters are the foundation. Without these, nothing else can grow. Next come syllables, then words, slowly building like bricks in a wall. Your tongue fumbles over unfamiliar sounds, but you try again, hearing the rhythm of Latin, the language that binds the empire. This is not just language. It is power, law, culture, and identity. The grammaticus moves on to reading aloud from a scroll. The words carry stories, myths of gods, tales of heroes, lessons on virtue and honor. You listen carefully, the sound of ancient voices echoing through the quiet room, filling it with distant worlds. Between lessons, your fingers rest on your wax tablet, and you watch as other students write, some neat and careful, others hurried and smudged. You imagine the stories these children carry, their lives beyond this small chamber. The farms, the shops, the bustling streets that wait for them once class ends. Mathematics follows. The teacher draws lines and dots on a wooden board, explaining numbers and sums, counting coins, measuring land, dividing food. These skills are practical, vital to everyday life. You practice simple addition, feeling the satisfaction of answers revealed through careful calculation. The air grows warmer as midday approaches. Outside, you hear distant laughter and the clatter of cartwheels. The teacher calls for a short break, and you step into the sunlight, the warmth a brief comfort before returning to the quiet discipline of lessons. After the break, the hardest part of the day arrives: memorization and recitation. You repeat phrases until your voice grows hoarse, trying to impress the grammaticus with your growing knowledge. The room echoes with the sound of Latin words, the cadence slow and steady, like the pulse of the city outside. Mistakes are met with firm correction. Your heart beats faster when the teacher's gaze fixes on you. But you know that every correction is a chance to improve, to grow stronger in this ancient art. Sometimes the grammaticus tells stories between lessons of Rome's glory and Pompeii's place within it. You imagine yourself among senators and soldiers, a citizen with a voice and a destiny. The final lesson comes in the form of writing poetry, a rare and treasured skill. You copy lines from Ovid or Virgil, your hand moving steadily, fingers dusted with wax. The words feel heavy with meaning, connecting you to generations long past. As the sun dips low, the day's lessons draw to a close. You carefully wipe your wax tablet clean, ready to begin again tomorrow. The teacher offers a quiet nod of approval, a small reward for your efforts. Walking home, the sounds of Pompeii welcome you back. Merchants closing stalls, children playing in the streets, the distant toll of temple bells. Your mind swirls with new words and ideas, a world opening slowly before you. You pause outside a small, unassuming shop tucked between two larger houses. This is where healing begins in Pompeii. Inside, a modest room bathed in gentle light. The air is thick with the aroma of crushed leaves, dried roots, and the faint sweetness of honey. A woman, perhaps the local healer or midwife, moves slowly among shelves lined with jars and leather pouches. Some containers hold bright red poppy seeds, others powdered myrrh, a resin sacred and precious. She speaks softly, murmuring words you can barely catch, words woven between science, belief, and hope. You listen as she gathers small bundles of herbs, sage to ease fever, fennel to soothe the stomach, lavender to calm the restless mind. She mixes them with olive oil and honey, stirring potions for wounds and remedies for coughs. Her hands are sure and steady, trained by years of watching and learning, but also by stories passed down, stories of gods and spirits who live unseen among mortals. You notice a small altar in the corner of the room. It holds statues of household gods, the Lares and Penates, guardians of the home and hearth. The healer places a fresh sprig of rosemary there, whispering a prayer. These gods are ever present in Pompeii, protectors, healers, watchers. Many believe their favor can ward off illness or undo a curse. As you breathe in the mingled sense of rue and time, you begin to understand. Healing here is a delicate dance between nature and the divine. When illness strikes, it is never just a physical ailment. It is a sign, a message from the gods, or perhaps a shadow cast by malevolent spirits. The lines between medicine and magic blur softly. Walking outside again, the streets feel quieter, the sounds muted by the thick stone walls of the city. You pass another home, where a family gathers around a small fire. They're preparing an amulet, a tiny object woven of iron and bronze, shaped to resemble a protective eye. It will be hung at the doorway or worn close to the skin. The amulet is more than ornament. It's a talisman meant to catch the envy of the evil eye, to trap misfortune before it touches flesh. You watch as a child clutches a small pouch filled with dried rue and garlic, herbs believed to keep demons at bay. The family speaks in hushed tones about the strange aches that have plagued the father lately. Some say it's the work of envy or jealousy. Others speak of an unquiet spirit lingering nearby. To soothe these fears, the healer might sprinkle salt at thresholds or draw protective symbols in ash. Your footsteps lead you toward the city's baths, where steam rises like mist from the tepidarium. Here, water itself is a form of healing, purifying the body, easing aches, and softening troubled skin. After the bath, men and women may anoint themselves with oils infused with herbs, myrtle for clarity, mint for vitality, and a hint of poppy for gentle rest. But even as you revel in these small comforts, you can't ignore the darker whispers that thread through Pompeii's streets. Some illnesses resist every remedy, every prayer. Sometimes people speak of curses, words spoken in bitterness or jealousy, believed to have power to strike down the unfortunate. To fight these, the desperate seek the help of magicians or visit temples where priests might offer protective rites. You imagine a man walking down this very street, his skin mottled with strange marks. He carries with him a small statue of the god Asclepius, the divine healer, and a folded papyrus with spells and incantations. His eyes dart nervously as he hopes these will save him from the creeping illness that no herb seems to touch. In another corner, a woman prepares a poultice of crushed mandrake root, her hands trembling slightly. Mandrake is powerful but dangerous. It was said to scream when pulled from the earth, and its use was bound in mystery. But for many, it was a last hope. As evening falls, the city grows quieter. You find yourself outside a small shrine where a lamp flickers softly in the dusk. A woman stands, her face serene as she makes a silent prayer to Apollo, god of healing and prophecy. Nearby, the scent of incense curls gently upward, mingling with the cooling air. You settle yourself nearby and feel the ancient calm settle deep inside. Here, in Pompeii, medicine was not just a science, it was a faith, a hope, a delicate balance between the known and the unknown. The people believed that healing came, not only from the herbs crushed in mortar, but from the blessings of gods, the protection of spirits, and the strength of the human will. You've been walking all morning, past fountains bubbling with cool water, past the market stalls thick with garlic and drying fish, past men in togas debating under the marble gaze of Jupiter. Now the sunlight falls a little lower in the sky, the heat softens, and you follow the others, neighbors, strangers, even a few slaves trailing behind their masters, as they head toward Pompeii's smaller Odeon theater, not far from the Forum. You're here for a comedy. Not a serious tragedy. Not a dry political farce. Just something to make you laugh. The queue outside the theater moves slowly. A few boys are selling water in ceramic jugs. You see a couple of wealthy women carried past in litters, their perfume thick and powdery in the air. But most are people like you. Worn tunics, sandals dusty from the street, faces sun-darkened and hopeful. You clutch your wax tablet under your arm in case you need to note a line you love. But for now, you just breathe. The faint scent of old olive oil lamps clings to the stones, and the salty breeze from the Bay of Naples filters gently through the city's open doors. Then, you're inside. The Odeon isn't large like the amphitheater across town. It's more intimate, the kind of place where you can actually see the actors' masks and feel the laughter ripple like a low drum through the crowd. The seating is carved from volcanic stone and arranged in a semicircle around the orchestra floor. It's cool in here, shaded from the sun, and already filling with the hum of hundreds of voices. A few children chatter. Somewhere nearby, someone's brought a snack. Dried figs and almonds, you think. You settle into a seat halfway up the rows. The stone is cold against your thighs, but you don't mind. You lean back and watch the last of the light disappear behind the frieze above the stage. Two musicians tune aulos pipes off to the side. A young man rushes past selling roasted chickpeas in a paper cone of old scroll. You buy one, still warm, and hold it as the murmuring slows and a hush, like a gentle tide, passes over the audience. Then, the entrance. From behind the curtain comes the exaggerated stomp of sandals. A door slams on stage. A man in a grotesque mask, oversized nose, painted cheeks, wide red mouth, bursts into view. He wears a padded costume, big in the belly, with a tunic too short for modesty. The audience erupts in laughter before he says a word. The play begins. It's a classic stock tale. A clever slave, a dim merchant, a girl who won't marry, and a secret message passed under a curtain. You've seen variations before, but it doesn't matter. The rhythm is familiar, comforting. The actors exaggerate every movement. When someone is sad, they weep with great moans. When someone is happy, they leap in wild circles. The masks help. Huge wooden things painted with expression. Mouths gaping to project the voice. Eyes outlined in black to reach even the furthest row. The dialogue is quick, sharp, and filled with local jokes. Something about the fishmonger's daughter. Something else about a senator's bald head. Each time a punchline lands, it travels in a wave from the front row to the back. A burst of laughter that crests, pauses, and breaks again. You laugh too. Not just at the jokes, but at the energy of it all. The way the crowd sways together in joy, like grain in a summer breeze. Now and then, you glance at the others around you. The old woman with the scarf tied tightly under her chin, shaking with laughter. The young couple sneaking sips of watered wine from a shared cup. A merchant's son whispering the lines along with the actors, word for word. You're all strangers, but in this moment, you feel connected, not by name, but by the way everyone leans forward at the same time, waiting for what happens next. There's music, too. The musicians off stage play short bursts between scenes, the aulos wheezing like a reed in the wind, the soft tap of percussion mimicking footsteps or door knocks. It's not a grand orchestra, just a thread of sound to tie the acts together. And when the farce dips, when the lovers are separated, when the clever slave is caught, the laughter pauses. A few hold their breath, but of course, it all turns around. These stories always do. By the final act, the entire crowd is loose and gleaming with joy. The sun is gone now, replaced by the flicker of oil lamps hung along the walls. Shadows stretch across the stage, dancing with the players. The merchant is tricked, the lovers reunited, the slave rewarded with a fine cloak that hangs lopsided on his padded frame. The audience claps, not wildly, but with a kind of shared warmth, like applauding an old friend who told a favorite story just the way you remembered it. You leave slowly. No one rushes. The seats empty like sand through an hourglass, softly and without hurry. The streets outside are still warm. Some linger by the exit, laughing over favorite moments. A few walk off toward the thermopolia for a late bite. You stretch your arms and smile. Your feet are sore, but your spirit is light. For an hour or so, you forgot your errands, your debts, the constant hum of survival. You laughed. Really laughed. And that alone feels like a luxury. And as you walk home through the lamplit streets of Pompeii, the sound of the actors still rings in your ears. It's strange, isn't it? To be alive in a world that can be so brutal, so fleeting, and yet people still gather to sit on stone benches and laugh together beneath the stars. The sun is beginning its descent over the stone walls of Pompeii, casting long golden shadows across the dusty training yard. You feel the warmth of the sun pressing into your skin, the weight of the leather straps across your chest, and the soft ache of your limbs after a morning spent practicing lunges and blocks with your wooden sword. This isn't the arena. Not yet. This is the ludus, the gladiator school, where sweat matters more than blood, and perfection is a matter of survival. You aren't alone, of course. Around you are men like yourself, some young and eager, others old and worn. A few are volunteers, chasing coin or fame, but most, like you, came here by fate, not choice, captured in war, sold by debt, branded not with glory, but with necessity. But here, in this enclosed courtyard of sand and stone, that doesn't matter anymore. No one cares who you were. They only care who you are becoming. The lanista, the manager of the school, watches from the shade, arms crossed, chewing quietly on a fig. He says little, but you know he misses nothing. Every misstep, every hesitation, every flinch, he notes it all. You heard from another trainee that he once turned away a senator's son who couldn't keep his shield up. You're not sure if it's true, but it doesn't matter. The message is clear. You train, or you bleed. And not just in the arena. Today's drills are slower than usual. No shouting, no whips. Just the familiar sound of practice blades thudding into wooden poles. You're paired with a murmillo, a big man with a helmet shaped like a fish, curved and gleaming in the sun. He grunts as you spar, his strikes heavy but controlled. He's not here to hurt you. Not yet. He's been fighting in the arena for 5 years. A veteran. The crowd knows his name. You've heard it chanted in the streets. Crixus. He speaks to you between drills. Not much. Just a few words of advice. Keep your elbow in. Don't shift your weight too early. Watch the hips. It's strange, this camaraderie. You were told gladiators were beasts, slaves, monsters. But here, they are also teachers. They have to be. Every man who dies in the arena is a loss of investment, a waste. After training, you peel off your sweat-soaked tunic and sit by the fountain, the stone cool beneath you. A few other trainees lounge nearby, sipping watered wine and massaging their bruises. Someone is humming a song from the countryside, a lazy tune that makes your chest ache for something you can't quite name. Home, maybe, or whatever you had before this. Still, there is comfort here. Routine. Meals at the same hour each day. Bread, olives, lentils. Occasionally meat if the lanista is feeling generous. You're given medical care, more than most free men in Pompeii. Your wounds are treated with honey and vinegar. Your muscles rubbed with oils. There is a physician assigned to the school. You don't know his name, but his hands are sure and his face is kind. He once sewed up a gash in your leg without a word of complaint. In the afternoons, the city sends visitors, wealthy patrons, curious children, senators and their bored wives. They watch from behind the training yard's gate, pointing and whispering as if you were animals in a cage. One girl, no older than 12, asked if you could remove your helmet so she could see your face. You did. She frowned. "He looks like my brother," she said. And just like that, the magic was gone. You are not a monster, not to yourself. You are simply a man. Yet outside these walls, you are something else entirely, a symbol, a fascination. The people of Pompeii chant your name if you win. They paint crude images of you on walls, muscles exaggerated, weapons raised. They place bets on you. They compose songs. Some even send letters. A woman once slipped you a piece of parchment through the bars of your dormitory. She wrote that she had dreamed of you, that she would cheer for you until her voice gave out. You kept the letter, not for pride, but for the simple reminder that someone out there sees you. As evening draws near, the bell rings from the amphitheater. You rise, still sore, and follow the others through the corridor toward the arena, not for combat, but for rehearsal. Tomorrow, there will be games. Today, there's preparation. You walk the sand under the shadow of marble arches, imagining the roar of the crowd. It is quiet now, but you've heard the arena full. It is a sound like thunder. The editor of the games, usually a local magistrate, will sit in the best seat. He decides who fights, when, and whether a man lives or dies. You've heard some care deeply. Others are careless, but the crowd matters most. If they cheer for you, raise their thumbs, demand your survival, then you are safe. At least for another day. You rehearse entrances, salutes, formations. Everything is choreography, spectacle. You are not just a warrior. You are an actor in a play of blood and sand. You know the script. You just hope you get to write the ending. As the sun sinks behind the volcano, the light turns red against the stone. You return to the ludus, wash in cold water, and lie down on your straw mat. The city is buzzing just beyond the walls. Laughter, music, the scent of grilled meat in the breeze. You close your eyes and imagine walking freely through those streets, unchained, unwatched, unknown. But for now, you sleep here, in the heart of Pompeii, a gladiator, a man both caged and celebrated, a body trained to endure. And tomorrow, you'll rise again. The sun is beginning to dip toward the west, its golden light stretching long across the stone streets of Pompeii. The day has been warm, but not uncomfortable, just enough to soften the scent of herbs drying on the windowsills and coax the sweetness out of the figs ripening in the stalls. You walk slowly, your sandals clicking gently against the cobblestones as the rhythms of evening stir around you. There's no rush now. The day's business is behind you. Ahead is the promise of food, comfort, and quiet. Your path winds through a narrow alley that widens into a small square where the scent of garlic and oil hangs low in the air. This is the hour when the thermopolia come alive, the ancient equivalent of street food stalls. brick counters rise waist-high, their stone tops inlaid with deep terracotta jars sunk into the surface. They're not unlike soup cauldrons, each one filled with something warm and fragrant. Lentils in broth, spiced sausages in wine, chickpeas cooked down to a paste with herbs and salt. You pass one man scooping out a steaming helping with a broad wooden ladle, offering it to a wool trader who hasn't had time to return home. There's no formal line, no shouting, no rush. Just neighbors, vendors, travelers and workers sharing space, nodding to one another as they eat on their feet or lean against the walls. A child giggles as he dips a piece of barley bread into something thick and red. Mulsum, wine sweetened with honey, is poured from a clay jug and passed around in small wooden cups. And always, nearby, the ever-present scent of garum lingers. The fermented fish sauce that Pompeiians love, added to nearly every dish. You don't stop at the thermopolium just yet. You're walking home, to a domus not large enough to boast a garden, but cozy all the same. Your evening meal is modest but familiar. You pause briefly at the spice merchant's stall. It's a small wooden cart with woven baskets and linen pouches spilling over its edge. Dried oregano, bay leaves, and thyme, familiar. But you also spot a pinch of something more expensive, imported peppercorns and cinnamon, which only the wealthier kitchens can afford in large quantities. You touch nothing, but breathe it all in. Back home, the kitchen is already warm. You duck under the low arch that leads to the colina, just a compact space with a small hearth, some clay pots, and a few iron tools. A servant is tending to the fire, fanning it gently to coax the embers alive. You hear the sizzle of olive oil as it kisses the bottom of a bronze pan. Chickpeas have been soaking since morning, and now they're being drained and mashed with garlic, coriander seed, and a touch of vinegar. Nearby, slices of salted fish are laid out on a wooden board, their edges curling ever so slightly as they begin to reach room temperature. There is no abundance, not in this household, but there is enough bread, stored in the pantry wrapped in linen, enough olive oil, though it's measured carefully, enough wine to mix with water, as is proper. And there are always lentils, always onions, always olives packed in brine. The air inside the kitchen hums gently with the smell of wood smoke and cumin. The household cat, a small gray thing with uneven stripes, paces along the low wall, sniffing at the corners where bits of barley grain might have fallen earlier in the day. You sit on a stool and watch the preparations unfold. Not rushed, not ceremonial, but part of the everyday rhythm that Pompeii moves to. Outside, the streets are quieter now. The shopkeepers have pulled in their wares, the awnings rolled back, the chalk graffiti on the walls growing fainter in the fading light. But even as the city slows, the kitchens glow. Fires crackle behind clay ovens. Neighbors call to each other across the balconies, sharing jokes, gossip, or simply the smell of what's being cooked. Your own meal is nearly ready. The fish has been placed in the pan with herbs and a splash of diluted wine. The chickpea mash has been shaped into rough cakes and set near the flame to crisp. A sliced apple, tart and soft, has been dusted with ground fennel and set in a bowl to cool. Bread is broken with fingers, passed without ceremony, and when it is all ready, the meal is not served with flourish or grandeur, but placed gently on the low table near the lamp. You do not eat in silence, but there is little need for words. A nod, a shared glance, the quiet scrape of a bowl being passed. This is how it has always been, how it will be until the mountain speaks again. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks. Closer still, you hear laughter echo off the stone. The scent of pine smoke drifts in through the open door, mixing with the rich smells of the evening meal. You lean back, warmed by the hearth, your eyes tracing the shadows that dance across the kitchen walls. You have eaten well tonight, perhaps not richly, but honestly. And here, in Pompeii, that is more than enough. You arrive in the triclinium just as the last hue of sunlight fades from the garden beyond the colonnade. The soft murmur of a nearby fountain lingers in the background, its rhythm unbroken. The air is warm, still carrying the sun's memory, but a light breeze has begun to stir the fabric hanging in the doorway. Sheer linen, dyed in earth tones, fluttering like the slow breath of the house itself. 3 couches surround the low wooden table, arranged in a neat U-shape. Each is cushioned in deep reds and warm ochres, the fabric a little stiff with age but soft enough where it matters. Under elbow, under hip. You've chosen the left couch, where one might typically be placed as a guest, somewhere between honored and familiar. You ease yourself down sideways, propped on your left elbow, feet stretched out and crossed lazily. The Roman way of dining is not rushed, no stools, no quick bites, but a slow, deliberate ceremony of taste and company. Tonight, you are part of that rhythm. The room is dim, lit by small terracotta lamps placed thoughtfully in alcoves. Their flames flicker against the plastered walls, each painted with scenes of myth. Venus rising from the sea, Bacchus cradling a wine cup, smiling lazily, fawns tangled in ivy and laughter. The shadows dance in time with the lamps, as if the gods themselves approve of your evening meal. Your host's slave enters quietly, barefoot on the mosaic floor, and places a bronze tray on the table. The smell reaches you before your eyes confirm it. Mulsum, sweetened wine infused with honey and a hint of spice. The scent is mellow, warm, like ripened fruit left out under the sun. Your host raises his cup and nods. You mirror the motion. The first sip coats your tongue. Sweetness first, then a faint bite of the wine underneath. It lingers. You drink slowly. Appetizers arrive next. Gustaccio, as Romans call it. A small dish of olives, dark and glossy, some wrinkled with salt, and others still round with oil. There are figs, too, sliced and scattered with sesame, their pink center soft and almost syrupy. A small ramekin of garum, the infamous fermented fish sauce, sits ready for dipping, and although the scent is sharp and sea-borne, it blends beautifully with the softness of the fruit and the salt of the bread. You dip a piece of flatbread, warm, thick, scored with grill marks, into the garum. It is briny, deeply savory, and unexpectedly satisfying. The sensation is unlike anything from your own time. It tastes of long voyages, of sea markets, and salted amphorae sealed in wax. It's strange, but comforting, like discovering a new habit that already feels old. As the courses continue, the lamps are refilled with oil, their light never waning. A platter of dormice comes next. Yes, dormice. Lightly roasted and stuffed with minced pork, pepper, and pine nuts. The meat is soft, the skin crisped by careful fire. You hesitate just for a moment, then taste. It is tender, seasoned generously with herbs from the garden, thyme, mint, maybe a trace of rue, You listen to the sounds around you, the soft clink of pottery, the creak of the couches under shifting weight, the hush of conversation, murmured in Latin, and the occasional laugh. No one rushes. No one interrupts. The world outside, the markets, the ash-blackened stove, the echoes of footsteps on the street, all of it fades beneath the velvet hum of the evening meal. A servant clears your empty plate and replaces it with the main dish. Roasted duck, its skin bronzed and lacquered with a glaze of honey and dates. It falls apart at the touch of your spoon. Next to it, lentils stewed in wine and coriander, their earthy warmth mingling with the sweetness of the fruit. Another cup of mulsum is poured without a word. You nod your thanks. This slow, stretched-out meal is not about hunger. It's about rhythm, the music of eating. Conversation ebbs and flows. One guest quotes a line of Virgil. Another argues about the quality of Spanish olives. The host smiles, reclined at ease, swirling his wine, his toga loosely draped over one shoulder like a man without hurry. You feel part of something old, something rehearsed by generations before you. Then comes the fruit, melon slices with shaved ice brought down from Vesuvius itself, stored in straw-lined pits and preserved for this warm night. There are pears poached in wine, sprinkled with ground pepper. Sweet and sharp. Every dish is both familiar and foreign. The essence of Rome. The final act is nuts and cheese. Walnuts cracked with iron pincers, fresh goat's cheese rolled in ash. A small dish of honeycomb glows like amber under the oil lamp. The taste of beeswax, faint and floral, clings to the back of your teeth. By now, the night has thickened. The lamps are lower. The fountain outside whispers more softly than before. The candles flicker gently, shadows curling against the painted gods above you. The couches feel warmer now, or perhaps your body has softened into their shape. The host leans back and tells a quiet joke about Saturn and his many loves. You laugh along, not too loudly. The air is heavy with myrrh from a censored incense cone, rich, sweet smoke curling toward the painted ceiling. Outside, a dog barks in the street, and a cart rolls by, its wheels clicking on the cobblestones. But you stay in the dining room, warm, full, surrounded by a world that is both strange and somehow deeply human. You've reclined to dine, as the Romans do, and in this moment, stretched out, wine sweet, wrapped in light and warmth, the centuries dissolve like honey in warm water. You step out into the courtyard just as the last glow of the sun bleeds behind Mount Vesuvius. The stone beneath your feet is still warm from the day, holding the sun's memory like a whisper. The cicadas have gone quiet. In their place, the soft coo of doves tucked into the eaves, and the gentle rustle of leaves catching the cool evening breeze. Above you, the sky shifts slowly from deep lavender to indigo. The wind smells of laurel and olive smoke, drifting from neighboring hearths where the evening meal still lingers, but your own villa has gone still. The dishes are cleared. The oil lamps flicker behind shutters. Tonight, like many nights, you find yourself pulled toward the open sky. Your feet carry you to the peristyle, that open-air heart of your home, where trailing vines curl around columns like sleepy fingers. You lie back on the carved stone bench, your head resting against your folded cloak, and exhale. It's only now, in this hush, that the stars begin to truly appear. One by one, they emerge like old friends coming to sit with you. First faint, then brighter, until the whole sky is gently pricked with light. There's no firelight out here, no city lamps, only the natural darkness, the kind that once ruled every night in every corner of the world. And in that darkness, the stars reign. It is an old sky, the same one your grandfather knew, and his father before him. The same constellations once mapped by Greek scholars and whispered about by Egyptian priests. You know them too. Your tutor taught you years ago, beneath this very roof. There, rising just over the eastern wall, do you see it? Orion, the great hunter, his belt, the 3 stars in a perfect row. You whisper their names to yourself like a poem. Alnitak, Alnilam, Mintaka. Not Latin, but beautiful still. Beyond him, Canis Major follows, his faithful dog with Sirius, the dog star, burning bright. Sirius, so bright it almost pulses. The Romans believe its rising marks the hottest days of the year, the dies caniculares, the dog days. And they were right. You remember the heat when the fountains grew sluggish and the roads baked so hot the air shimmered. But now, with autumn settling in, Sirius has taken its place lower in the sky. The nights are cool again. Your breath fogs slightly in the dark. Above Vesuvius now, another familiar form, the Big Dipper, part of Ursa Major, the bear that never sets. You trace it with your finger, slowly, as if touching each star will anchor you more firmly to this world. The handle bends gently, then the bowl. A ladle held up to the sky. Not far from that, if you tilt your head, the North Star, Polaris, fixed and faithful. Every sailor knows it, every merchant who's ever crossed the sea. When the world turns below, Polaris does not. Your tutor said it sits at the axle of the heavens. Even the gods, it seems, need a center to turn around. The stars were more than pretty lights to your people. They told stories, predicted seasons, even offered warnings if you knew how to read them. Farmers marked planting by them. Temple priests scheduled festivals. Your mother swore by the stars when choosing dates for travel and when avoiding them. Some believe the gods carved meaning into the night sky, that Jupiter's will and Mars's anger could be traced in their movements. Others say it's the work of fate, the stars fixed long ago by hands greater than ours, indifferent to prayer or sacrifice. You're not sure what you believe, but lying here now, with only the sounds of distant dogs and the wind in the trees, you understand why people have always looked up. Because the stars are constant, above a city of chariots and senators, of stonemasons and slaves, above love affairs and market disputes, broken promises and wine-sweet laughter. Above the very stones of Pompeii, they shine the same. There's comfort in that. The stars don't know what comes next, that the mountain you rest your eyes on, so dark and quiet now, will one day blot them out with smoke, that its belly holds something more ancient than constellations, something waiting. But not tonight. Tonight, all is still. From somewhere beyond your courtyard wall, you hear the muffled strum of a lyre. A neighbor, perhaps, finishing a song beneath his own fig tree. The notes are soft, fragile things. They rise, then fade, like starlight. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine this same night stretched out over the sea, over the merchant ships drifting toward Neapolis, over the shepherds camped in the hills, over children curled beside parents in stone cottages far from the villa-lined roads. All of them beneath this same sky. This same storybook of stars. When you open your eyes again, more stars have gathered. A few faint shooting streaks trace quick silver lines, then vanish. You know the stars will turn slowly as the hours pass, the night wheel shifting until dawn begins to push them back down. But for now, they are yours. You pull your cloak tighter. The stone is cooler now, and your breath hangs in the air. A candle flickers in the tablinum behind you, its light soft and golden. But you don't go inside yet. Not until you found Cassiopeia, the vain queen, forever seated in the sky. You wake just after dawn. The light spilling through your window carries an odd color, not the usual gold of morning, but something flatter, paler, like milk steeped with ash. You rub your eyes and swing your legs over the edge of your cot. The air feels unusually heavy today. Still, no birdsong, no barking from the neighbor's dog, just the soft whisper of wind and something else, something like a distant hiss high above. Your sandals slap the tiled floor as you pad across the courtyard. The household is stirring. The cook is already muttering near the brazier, and your cousin is fetching water from the cistern. She glances up at the sky and pauses. You follow her gaze. A long ribbon of cloud rises above Mount Vesuvius, stretching upward like the smoke from a temple's sacred fire. But it's wrong. Too thick. Too dark. The base of it swells wide like a mushroom's cap, curling outward into an immense plume that dwarfs the mountain. It doesn't move like normal clouds do. It grows, steadily, unnervingly. "It's the gods," the cook whispers behind you, her voice cracked with fear. "They're angry." You want to laugh, but your throat is dry. Angry gods or not, something has changed. Within the hour, ash begins to fall. Soft at first, like snowflakes but gray and gritty. It coats your shoulders, your hair, the stone basin of the garden fountain. It's everywhere. And it doesn't stop. People begin to pour into the streets. At first, just a few. Neighbors wiping their faces, trying to joke through the unease. But then more come. Children with soot on their cheeks, traders tugging carts covered in cloth, men shouting for their wives. The air smells strange, a mix of sulfur and burning pine, hot metal and dust. You taste it in the back of your throat. A tremor shakes the ground. You freeze. It doesn't last long, but it's strong enough to rattle your teeth and knock a jar from a high shelf. You hear it shatter behind you. Somewhere far off, a roof collapses with a crash like thunder. People scream. You duck back into your home, grabbing your thin wool cloak and a pouch of coins. You don't know why you do it. Instinct, maybe. You call for your cousin. She's already at the doorway, face pale, holding a loaf of bread and your uncle's old water jug. You nod, and together, you step into the churning gray air. The sky is black now, not the black of night. This is thicker, darker, unnatural. A choking shroud that turns midday into midnight. Torches flicker in the hands of frantic citizens. You pass the baker's shop. The oven still glows orange, unattended. Across the way, the temple doors stand open. Priests huddled at the base of the columns, arms lifted to the heavens, mouths moving in prayer. It's hard to breathe. You tie your cloak over your nose and mouth. Your cousin stumbles beside you, coughing. The ash is thicker now, falling in clumps, hot and sticky when it touches skin. Somewhere, a dog howls. Somewhere else, a horse screams and bolts down the narrow street, dragging its broken tether behind it. People are fleeing through the gates. You follow them. Past the forum, where statues are barely visible through the gloom. Past the bathhouse, its painted walls already fading beneath a blanket of dust. Past bodies lying in doorways, some resting, others not. A man grabs your arm, his eyes wide with panic, his teeth bared like an animal. "Go to the sea," he cries. "The boats are leaving." You shake him off and keep walking. You don't know where you're going. You don't know if anywhere is safe. The ash is ankle deep now, and every breath burns. You think of your home, your small room, the oil lamp beside your bed, the scroll you were reading just last night. You think of the bread cooling on the kitchen table, of the figs ripening on the vine, of your uncle's worn sandals by the door. Gone. All of it. Or soon to be. A loud crack splits the sky, not thunder, something deeper. Vesuvius roars above the city like a wounded god. The ground trembles again. Roof tiles clatter from above. Somewhere, a wall gives way with a groan. Ash pours like water from the broken lintel. Your cousin trips and nearly falls. You grab her arm. "Keep going," you tell her. "We're almost there." But you're not. No one is. The world is shrinking, reduced to shadows and screams and falling soot. The air grows hotter, thicker. It clings to your skin like wet wool. Your legs ache. Your lungs burn. You can barely see. The street ends. You're at the city gate. People are pushing, shoving, weeping. A woman collapses beside you, clutching a baby whose face is still. A boy no older than 12 helps an old man carry a birdcage. The bird inside is silent. You don't stop. You don't think. You walk. You walk through darkness and dust, through the end of a world. And behind you, Pompeii begins to disappear. Street by street, wall by wall, breath by breath. You don't know it yet, but everything you've ever known will be buried beneath 15 feet of ash and time. Centuries will pass before your city is found again, before anyone will see your streets, your courtyards, your frescoes. But right now, none of that matters. You're just trying to survive the day everything changed. You've been walking a long time, but not in a hurry. There is no rush here, just quiet stone beneath your feet and air that smells faintly of dust and time. The sun is warm, but not harsh. Everything feels paused, like the world is waiting politely for you to arrive. You step gently through what was once a street. Narrow, uneven, carved by cartwheels, long stilled. To your left, the skeleton of a bakery. The counter still holds deep round jars once filled with grain. The grinding stones sit in place, as if the miller has just stepped out for a sip of wine. You rest your hand on the ancient basalt and close your eyes. You can almost hear it. The turning, the clatter, the low voice of someone humming while working. But it's quiet now. Pompeii has been sleeping for centuries. Not peacefully, but deeply. The kind of sleep you fall into when something sudden takes you. Not time to prepare, not time to breathe. just silence and ash. 1,000 years passed before the world found her again. And now, you're here, walking in a city that shouldn't be here, a city that was supposed to be lost. You take another step, past cracked frescoes and mosaic floors half sunk into the earth. In one corner, a garden. Not green anymore, but the shapes remain. The roots that once curled toward sunlight are now preserved in hardened casts, their outlines telling a quiet story in the soil. Scientists filled the voids left by roots and bones and wooden door frames with liquid plaster. They poured memory into emptiness and gave shape to ghosts. You follow a curved wall into a Roman home. The atrium opens above you, letting the light in just as it did 2,000 years ago. Beneath your feet, puddles used to collect rainwater. This was the impluvium. A fountain once sang here, and visitors would have paused to splash their hands or admire the cool shadows dancing along the columns. You let your fingers brush the painted walls, now faded. Scenes of gods and myths, half remembered. Reds and ochres and faded blues, still clinging on. Still telling stories no one has interrupted for centuries. You pass through the triclinium, the dining room where guests once reclined on low couches, sipping mulsum and speaking in low tones. You don't know their names, but their breath once filled this space. Their laughter, their arguments, their silences. A wind stirs, and you step out again. The silence isn't empty, not here. It hums, as if the ash preserved more than just walls and furniture, as if it held onto voices, footsteps, heat, and time. When archaeologists uncovered Pompeii in the 1700s, they had no idea what they were waking up. They chipped away at rock and rubble, expecting ruins, and instead found a city that had merely paused mid-sentence. You walk past the baths now, the walls curved and warm-colored, covered in scenes of sea creatures and athletes. The caldarium once steamed with heat. The tepidarium glowed in lamplight. And strangers gathered here, not just to cleanse, but to speak, to gossip, to feel human. In your mind's eye, the bathers return, water trickling, sandals tapping, someone laughing softly through the steam. You take a slow breath. The air is dry, scented faintly with cypress and thyme. Beneath your feet, the stones still remember where sandals slipped, where wheels turned, where dogs curled beneath tables. In one quiet room, you stop. A window frame without glass looks out toward Mount Vesuvius. Calm now, distant and patient. She is no longer angry, but her shadow lingers. In 79 CE, she exploded with no warning. The ash fell thick, turning midday into midnight. Some fled, some hidden. Some did not have time to decide. Whole lives, moments of joy, panic, tenderness, fear, were captured beneath 20 feet of pumice and ash. Now, centuries later, plaster casts rest quietly in glass cases, figures frozen at the edge of breath, a child curled beside a mother, a man clutching a small pouch of coins, a dog twisted in its final movement. These aren't statues. They are echoes, human echoes. And you, walking here, you are not just a visitor, you are a witness. You walk where they walked. You pause where they paused. You listen, and in the silence, something listens back. Pompeii isn't dead. She's remembering. You wander past the Temple of Apollo, columns reaching up towards sky. A sundial sits cracked in the courtyard, no longer telling time, but still marking its passage. You pass the forum where debates once stirred, and the brothel with carved signs pointing the way for customers long gone. You pass homes with names we still know: the House of the Faun, the House of the Tragic Poet, as if even memory clings to beauty. You pause at the edge of town. Before you, the road continues. You could follow it out, as some did in those final hours, hoping to escape the cloud, the fire, the ash. Some made it. Most did not. And yet, their world did not vanish. You stand in it now. You walk their streets. You carry their stories. And as you turn back, toward the sunlit ruins and the quiet houses, toward the painted gods and the gardens of stone, you realize something. Pompeii may have been buried, but it was never truly lost. It waited for someone to come back. For you. And now that you're here, it remembers. Thanks for listening. If you're already asleep, great. We've successfully lulled you to sleep. And if you're still awake, well, that's impressive. If you genuinely enjoy these boring stories about history, feel free to subscribe to our channel whenever you're in the mood. Sleep well, and good night.